This video is brought to you by my generous supporters on Patreon and Twitch. 2022 is the year of the tiger, and right on New Year's Day, a new anime was announced for the famous tiger skin bikini wearing Lum from Urusei Yatsura. Younger anime fans may recognize her from 80s aesthetic videos like Future Funk or what have you, but she's an important figure in anime. Recognized by her horns and her habit of saying, "Darling!" No, not that one. This new anime version is shaping up to be very much its own unique work for a new generation of viewers. At the time of recording this, HIDIVE has confirmed they will be producing an English dub for this reboot, but this won't be the first time Lum's speaking English. So before we even get to Urusei Yatsura 2022, we've got to go way back to when this franchise made its journey to the English-speaking world. It's a long story, taking us all over the US and even the world. So I'm gonna need two parts and some help from another dub-focused YouTuber.
Hey guys, I'm Abhi from the Cartoon Cypher. Sorry we haven't made a video in a while, but I'm psyched to talk about Urusei Yatsura's many English dubs.
Before we jump into the dubs, what exactly is Urusei Yatsura? Urusei Yatsura is a romantic comedy shonen manga first published in 1978 in Weekly Shonen Sunday. This is the first long-running series created by the now legendary and influential mangaka Rumiko Takahashi. The manga would receive an anime adaptation starting on October 14th, 1981 and running for nearly 5 years, just shy of 200 episodes. Urusei Yatsura stars a 17-year-old high school playboy named Ataru Moroboshi. This lecherous lad is often seen hitting on girls every moment he can, but the guy has a hot streak of bad luck too, in love and otherwise. His horrid luck really comes to a head when one day the fate of the world suddenly rests on his shoulders in an intense game of tag. His opponent? The daughter of an alien invader that has come to conquer Earth, Lum. Lum is an Oni alien girl dressed in a tiger-striped bikini, but don't be deceived by her good looks. She can fly with grace, use a wide variety of gadgets, and unleash bolts of electricity at will, making her a force to be reckoned with for an Earthling. Ataru's bad luck didn't stop at barely saving the world. In an unfortunate misunderstanding, Lum thinks Ataru proposed to her after their game of tag and makes it her lifelong goal to be his loving wife. Surely being engaged to a scantily clad, devoted alien waifu would be perfect for the ever-flirtatious Ataru, right? Wrong. He wants nothing to do with her and would rather keep chasing other girls, even if he's already dating someone. Thus begins Ataru's new life, stuck in a love triangle with his existing girlfriend and an envious extraterrestrial girl, all the while making moves on other women. This love triangle gains more sides as the story continues, and hijinks ensue in every story with Ataru and company getting caught in wacky situations. A few other characters in Urusei Yatsura include Shinobu, Ataru's girlfriend, Tain, Lum's small, fire-breathing alien cousin, Ran, Lum's childhood friend who is also a superpowered jealous alien, Baintain, another childhood friend of Lum that is a hardcore, violent biker girl, Shutaro Mendo, a wealthy, flirty sword fighter, and Cherry, a strange, wandering, fate-predicting monk. Urusei Yatsura is a classic through and through. The manga launched Takahashi into the industry spotlight, and she made even bigger hits with Ranma 1/2 and Inuyasha. That's not to undersell the work that started it all though. There are over 35 million copies of the manga in circulation, and Lum and Ataru are both iconic characters in Japanese pop culture, as evidenced by the fact there is a reboot. This series was also a big early directorial job for Mamoru Oshii, directing over 100 episodes of the TV series as well as several of the films. He would go on to direct Ghost in the Shell and 2 of the Patlabor movies. Without further ado, let's look at Urusei Yatsura's English dub history, including casting, changes, and what the future holds. But before we look at any dubs, we should look at the early fandom in the West. Urusei Yatsura's popularity with Americans far predates any English dubs of the show. In fact, the first known appearance of Lum & Company in the US dates back to March of 1982 at the latest, mere months after the show first aired in Japan, thanks to the animation fan club, the Cartoon/Fantasy Organization. Founded in 1977, this grassroots group had a presence in cities across North America from New York to LA to Chicago to Toronto. The CFO's various locations held monthly video screenings with a heavy presence of Japanese animation, but some French works or even obscure American content as well, thanks to VHS tapes from legal sources, bootleg recordings, or friends of friends of friends that know a guy in Japan. Most videos shown didn't have subtitles, so instead, somebody near the TV would explain what's happening on screen to the cartoon-loving audience that likely didn't know a lick of any language but English. On its 59th monthly screening schedule, the CFO's LA community listed Urusei Yatsura on the lineup under the English translated title Those Obnoxious Aliens, showcasing episodes 1 and 2. Worth noting is that Lum's name is listed as Lamu, probably because her name didn't have an official romanization available and this was a fan-run event, so who would know? Let's break down that translated title, Those Obnoxious Aliens. Urusei is a crude way of saying Urusai, which means loud or obnoxious in Japanese, while Yatsura can mean those guys in an informal sense. However, Takahashi used the kanji for star for the sei portion of Urusei, adding an extraterrestrial meaning to the phrase, and thus you can get something like those obnoxious aliens. The show's prominence at these meetups led to Urusei Yatsura being mentioned in a 1984 Philadelphia Inquirer article about CFO. The show, being referred to as those annoying aliens, was called a favorite in the club according to the article. This would be one of, if not the, first mention of Urusei Yatsura in American media. The next mention of those obnoxious aliens was in the Chicago Tribune on November 19, 1987, featured in an article about die-hard animation fans in the US consuming Japanese media through these meetups. It's evident Lum and Friends were a big hit in the underground American nerd scene in the 80s. Urusei Yatsura even made appearances in Western pop culture, a major one being Lum's prominent appearance in the 1991 music video of I've Been Waiting by Matthew Sweet. The man even has a Lum tattoo. This love of Takahashi's hit series in the West led to some of its media being released officially in America. First was an English translated manga by Viz Media starting in 1989 under the title Lum, Urusei Yatsura. 8 of these monthly 2-chapter issues came out, as well as a single volume compilation in 1990 and 1994 before Viz pulled the plug on it. The publisher did eventually bring the series back in their Animerica magazine, rechristened The Return of Lum, Urusei Yatsura, and did some individual releases, but ultimately dropped the series entirely in 1998, and came back to do it all over again over 20 years later. For the anime though, officially subtitled American VHS tapes began releasing in October of 1992 through a North Carolina-based company called AnimEigo. Urusei Yatsura Movie 1 and 2 were also licensed for a North American release, with Movie 2 Beautiful Dreamer being released by New York-based company Central Park Media instead, and AnimEigo helping keep that release consistent with their version. AnimEigo would go on to sporadically release the first 74 episodes of Urusei Yatsura through 19 VHS tapes. The releases went on hold in 1996, possibly due to low sales. America's love for Urusei Yatsura only grew stronger when consumers began using the internet. A fan campaign titled Lum Stormtroopers Unite sought to bring the extraterrestrials' escapades to American airwaves on the San Jose PBS station KTEH. The station already aired other anime like Tenchi Muyo and Ranma 1/2 on Sunday nights, and had offered anime merch at pledge drives, so Urusei Yatsura seemed like a good fit for the channel. And you know what? The fan campaign worked. Lum graced San Francisco Bay Area TVs beginning September 6, 1998, and the series ran for 2 years on the station. Whew! With all that background out of the way, let's dive in and look at Urusei Yatsura's first English dub. Take it away, Abhi!
While releasing sub Urusei Yatsura, AnimEigo would take a crack at a dubbed release, and as far as the show proper goes, it would only ever be 2 episodes under the Those Obnoxious Aliens title.
Another obnoxious alien has landed!
Footnote 12 on their origin story article says, when AnimEigo decided to start dubbing, it turned out to be very convenient to be located in Wilmington, which being a major film TV production center, had a lot of decent, underemployed actors who would practically pay us to voice act. Which tracks with something Zach Hanna, who only has a few lines in this dub, said in the Maddox commentary.
Well, in Wilmington where we live, it had a really big boom in the 90s for film and television stuff, and so there were a lot of really talented people here looking to break into that, and so it was easy to lure them with the idea of doing some anime.
Carolina is not really a region that comes to mind when you think about what anime dubbing's like these days. Of course there's remote recording, but in terms of hubs, it's mostly Texas, California, then every other hub on the sidelines. Recognize this clip? That's from You're Under Arrest, which had its English dub made at Coastal Carolina Studios, along with titles like Shinesman, Crusher Joe, and Virtua Fighter. However, Coastal Carolina was not one of the studios from that state involved with Urusei Yatsura's dubbing. Our first stop is the less prolific Southwind. There are the dubs being Bubblegum Crisis, Crash and AD Police, Battle Royale High School, and Riding Beam. The ADR director was Jay Randolph, who most sites credit with directing other Southwind dubs. When it comes to the ADR writer though, there's no one here. You can see the translation staff, but there's no specific credit for the person who adjusts the translation to fit the lip flaps and sound a bit more natural when read aloud. Whether that means there was no writer like that or they just didn't list them as such, I don't really know. The engineering and production staff credits are definitely more exhaustive, including one name you may be familiar with from elsewhere, who was also the voice of the protagonist himself.
I know no fear!
The first English dub voice of Ataru Moroboshi was Michael Tremaine Sinter-Nicholas. Nowadays, he's probably best known as the founder of recording studio NYAV Post, who are pretty well regarded in the community for their track record. They've done dubbing for some famous franchises and hit films, while also getting high-profile live-action stars into some of their casts. Sinter-Nicholas is also known for acting in Prelay cartoons like The Venture Brothers and the 2003 Ninja Turtle series. He was a 4Kids dub actor for stuff like Yu-Gi-Oh! And Shaman King. He's popped up in Funimation dubs, other LA dubs, video games, but once upon a time he was working on Carolina dubs.
No! You're lying! It's a lie! You're just lying to protect yourself, aren't you?
He captures Ataru's patheticness through his constant yelping, and his screaming was definitely memorable to say the least. When recently asked about Ataru, he mentioned he was his first lead role and was from his first year of dubbing. Given everything he's done since then, I don't doubt he could improve that performance.
Shut up! Who cares about the future?
Just a heads up, every dub pronounces Ataru's name more like Ataru, except maybe this guy.
Ataru.
If you look up many of this dub's actors, the biggest point of overlap they'll have is Bubblegum Crisis. Here are some of their corresponding roles on screen. Shinobu was played by Catherine Burton, who passed away in 2016. She sounded alright, albeit a bit older than her Seiyu counterpart.
Ataru, stop that! What are you doing? Someone's watching! Oh.
Ten, played by Mindy L. Lyons, sounded less textured and lower pitched in English, like they wanted to play him more as a kid than a baby. It almost sounds like he has... is that an old New York accent?
Don't try messing with me just cause you think I'm a kid!
But that could be a parallel to his Osaka dialect in the Japanese. Speaking of different accents, the dub specifically has a couple more.
Man, what the heck is that?
Michael S. Way, who according to IMDb passed away in 2004, played the old man, who also sounds like he has a different accent.
The inhabitant of the Earth that their computer has randomly chosen, in other words you, get to have a match with him.
Eric Paisley, who has since worked on live action and anime alike, played Cherry, and I think was going for a different accent as well.
Actually, what I meant to say was that you have tremendously unlucky facial features, yes.
That then becomes lighter for his first few lines at the start of episode 2.
Terrible! Something terrible will happen to that cursed family.
J. David Arnold, or David Arnold, who was another production assistant, gave the space taxi driver a distinct enough voice that fit his strange appearance.
I hear this strong call, so I just hovered down. They'll pay your fare.
And I think Mark Garber tried capturing Megane's energy, even if the delivery wasn't as fast as the Japanese.
The beautiful Lum has fallen most unexpectedly for that scum Ataru. And it's been a week since she left for her home planet to obtain her alien registration permit.
When it comes to strange voices in this dub, David Krause as Lum's father can't be topped.
We'll go home in peace.
He had a similar texture in the Japanese, so you can tell what they were going for.
That's right, my boy. I'm Invader.
But he sounds like Barney from The Simpsons. I know that my shtick is referencing The Simpsons, but come on, he totally sounds like Barney.
Yes, sir. This is my daughter Lum, and if you can grab her horns in a game of tag, within 10 days you win. All I remember about the last 2 months is giving a guest lecture at Villanova. Or maybe it was a street corner.
The most enthusiastic award definitely goes to Mark Matney, who'd later be known for Nakajima in You're Under Arrest as Ataru's dad. You can't blame him for not bringing enough energy to the table.
Papa? You're no son of mine! A monster like you could never be a son of mine!
He's an extreme case, but I feel it encapsulates how clumsy sounding the dub's acting can be in general. Definitely expressive, but often in a rough and unwieldy way.
Sure!
You must not go in that direction. Something horrible will happen.
What was the reason behind making them bigger than their mother?
What are we going to do? We can't use up this much propane.
This actress in particular was something else.
Why, look, isn't that their loser son, Ataru? Ataru, how can you dump an Earth woman
I'll flirt with an alien!
The intent is coherent enough, but get ready for stuff like that if you want to check out those obnoxious aliens.
What are we gonna do?
Granted, Urusei Yatsura is a comedy, so in a certain capacity it should sound ridiculous, and listening to the way the reporters and announcers that show up in these episodes deliver their lines, I think they at least understood that.
There he is! Mr. Maraboshi. Mr. Maraboshi, responsibility resting on your shoulders, extremely important. Your thoughts on that?
As for the dialogue itself, it's very close to what's in the subtitle translation a majority of the time, which has an obvious benefit, though it also makes the few liberties stand out more than usual.
You good-for-nothing scum, you little Maluka!
Maluka? Is that one of these? There's also Ataru's Wizard of Oz and Godzilla references, a reporter saying, "Look, they're waving" in episode 2, pretty minor stuff like that. A little ad-libbing happens for some shots where there was originally either no dialogue, or nondescript dialogue.
Got out here, you little fat bumblebee! I'm gonna smack you till you bleed!
Though my favorite added dialogue is unfortunately something I don't think was meant to be in the final audio.
I'm going to live together with Darling!
Let's try this.
It kinda sounds like the actor asking if he could do another take, but they kept that instead. The dub is uncut, but the tape lacks on-screen signs for the Japanese text outside the episode titles. The only edits seem to be small audio-related ones, but I don't really know why they exist. I've been using the Japanese Blu-ray, which obviously came out well after the dub videotape, as the source for the original audio. Regardless, episode 2's eye catch on the tape has some sound effects not present on the Blu-ray. While the next episode previews between both use different music.
From far off in space comes another obnoxious alien. It's Ray. 宇宙の彼方からうるせえやつがまた一人。うちの後しつこく追い回すレイが現れるっちゃ。
Again, be it through the writing or direction, some lines felt jankier than others to me. My favorite being, "Aren't you enough man?" However, there was definitely an effort to match the lip sync despite the script's faithfulness, and I think in episode 2, Synth Nicholas had more distinctly rephrased lines compared to before.
This means war! But I've tried everything, she won't go away. Give me that box, now!
The other source of rare script deviations came from tricky Japanese linguistics or cultural references. On the Archive AnimEigo site, there's a series of PDF files that appear to be the liner notes bundled with the DVD releases of Urusei Yatsura, explaining various aspects of Japanese linguistics and culture, many of which the dub doesn't have. The dub itself does adapt a few things, like making sure Ten refers to Ataru's mum with a younger sounding title to butter her up, and possibly his accent. But for the most part, hard to explain moments were either left as is without added context, or completely replaced with a different kind of line.
You must be looking for Ataru. I'll find him.
Nothing weird about that reaction, right? Well, in the Japanese, he's saying part of a chant from the Mamemaki tradition of Setsubun that involves throwing soybeans. Funnily enough, in the new anime, they have Ataru saying the same line but actually show him throwing the soybeans. Which would probably make keeping the cultural reference in the dub easier. Other omissions include Butsumetsu, which is a pretty ironic thing to name something. However, not every replacement line the dub came up with made total sense to me. Take the Momotaro reference.
It's hot people.
Hot people? The notes explain some other Oni-related linguistics, including a mythology-based explanation for why Lum erroneously thought Ataru wanted to marry her. Even the protagonist's name, Ataru Moroboshi, which means struck by a falling star, comes into play in a way that's hard to directly translate. Meanwhile, stuff like the TV interviews play out word for word, while the notes expound on why these figures are notorious. Again, you can check out the notes yourself in full online for free, and it spans the rest of the series. But the most defining part of this dub was probably Lum herself, played by Martha Ellen Senzine.
Sorry to keep you waiting. I'm your opponent, Lum.
She has a few live-action credits according to IMDb, but her only other anime credit I can find is Sylvie in Bubblegum Crisis, where her voice is a bit more normal.
You look like you're having fun. I hope I'm not interrupting anything.
For Lum, she's almost neck and neck with the seiyu's vocal pitch. However, this character's Japanese dialogue has some noteworthy quirks that only this dub has tried explicitly portraying in English.
Why, we're the married couple. It's common sense for a married couple to live together.
The first-person pronoun she uses for herself is uchi, and some sources associate that with dialects from the Kansai region. A lot of her lines use cha or dacha as a suffix. English speakers online seem a little confused as to whether Lum's use of this is just a cute, meaningless addition, or if it's specific to a Japanese region. Cards on the table, neither of us really know where it originates either. Regardless, the dappya from Rumiko Takahashi's first published work, Kate no Yatsura, had a similar habit of ending their lines with dappya, and they even show up in this series to do it. Yet sound nothing like that in the dub.
The earth will go up in smoke.
Senzune played Lum with what I assume is a European accent, but I can't exactly pinpoint what kind.
On my planet, marriage proposals are sacred. I dedicate my life to living with you forever. And if you cheat on me...
She does have some kind of cha suffix, though not quite the same as the Japanese audio. There, Lum would say cha or dacha pretty much instantly, but here there's a brief gap before she says icha.
Oh, I'm not that easy to catch, Icha. You didn't do your homework. Icha!
What are you doing over there? It's dinner time! Icha!
And she also says it less and less frequently as the dub goes on. I kept thinking they'd forgotten about it, but at some points she says it when it wasn't said in the Japanese, almost as if to compensate for that. What she does have in the dub is a bunch of high-pitched noises when dodging Ataru in the game of tag that weren't in the original. It doesn't look like this dub got much of a following. In December of 1998, Justin Savakis, we'll be hearing that name more than once, mentioned this dub in an Anime News Network write-up. He called it the worst dub ever released, criticizing the lack of explanation for words like Oni, Lum's hard-to-understand accent, non-existent post-production, and a comment AnimEigo apparently made at the time about the casting, along with other ringing endorsements. Personally, I didn't get a seizure, but I can kinda see where he was coming from.
Look, pal, don't exaggerate.
Those obnoxious aliens invested a lot in staying close to the translation, which is definitely respectable. Some of the acting and writing was fine, but overall it needed more polish, and at its worst, teeters between so bad it's good and hard to listen to.
I've still got a lot more mortgage payments to make!
I definitely think it's possible to have a very literal dub script that's satisfying to listen to with the right subtle tweaks and strong direction, but certain moments in this dub bothered me because I kept thinking the line would have sounded a lot less clunky with just a slightly different wording or delivery. Nothing on the level of early DBZ rewrites at all.
Allied to good! Nightmare to you!
Although, no matter what the actors sound like, Urusei Yatsura presents some localization challenges that aren't so straightforward to convey in English. There's various ways to approach them, but each has their own strengths and weaknesses. One way might sound unnatural, out of, or even in context, but another way might lose nuance or stray too far in meaning. And we all have different thoughts on what the right approach is for a given situation.
Some may say it's a good change, others may say it's a bad change.
Strictly speaking, it's hard to know how familiar each individual foreign viewer will be with certain Japanese references and linguistics. Watching anime alone may teach you about some stuff, though not absolutely everything. However, things have changed over time, especially since this show first came out, and will likely keep changing, but to what extent, who knows? It's not easy. You can find this dub on the Internet Archive, but you're gonna have to turn the volume way up to hear anything. Enjoy the clip of Southwind's Riding Bean dub at the end, plus the scrolling list of AnimEigo's other then available titles, including Rapan III, whatever that is. But despite the dub being panned and discontinued pretty much immediately, thanks to fan demand, AnimEigo continued their subbed home video releases in 1999. Eventually, the subtitled release swapped over to DVD starting with Volume 25, and finished the full series run with Volume 50 on June 6, 2006.
Last disc! Kiss me, you fool! Yes! Yes!
We're gonna save all the movies for part 2, so now for what I imagine a lot of people are waiting for.
Now, in 1998, the BBC has taken another giant leap forward with the launch of digital television.
BBC Choice was the first digitally broadcast TV channel in the UK, launched in September of 1998. About 2 years later, it would run a 2-night program called Japan TV on the weekend of August 5th and 6th, starting at 9 p.m. This was a Japan-themed series of programs including focuses on music, fashion, and even some of their media brought over, including...
Now, the bizarre humor of one of Japan's most popular programs ever. Anna Friel is the sexy alien princess in Lum the Invader Girl.
Lum the Invader Girl is the title of yet another 2-episode dub of Urusei Yatsura that aired on both nights of that weekend. This time it would be episodes 1 and 3, without 2 for some reason. However, as will become pretty clear from watching it, this dub was not taking itself too seriously anyway.
A plain omelette. Oh yeah.
Lum the Invader Girl is a gag dub, where the dialogue goes way off script for the sake of adding in whatever wisecracks the actors and staff wanted.
But if you don't meet this challenge, I'll run your teeth so far down your throat you'll be able to chew with your ass!
Wait, didn't The Undertaker say that line? Unlike a lot of gag dubs, it had a particular leaning towards British humor and cultural references, as, well, that was the audience watching. The dub was directed by Chris O'Reilly, who I couldn't find anything about, and comedy writer Simon Blackwell is credited as the script editor, whose work you can see on screen now. Blackwell even mentioned this dub back in 2013 as one of his first ever TV gigs. But on that note, I don't really know much about the British media landscape circa 2000 or circa any point in time for that matter beyond like, I don't know, Wallace and Gromit and Monty Python and Thomas the Tank Engine, I guess? I imagine some of the non-Brits watching are in a similar boat. So to all the UK viewers, please bear with me as I walk us through who some of these actors are and some of the more British things they may say.
Oh, you little sod!
Ataru!
Ataru was played by actor and comedian Matt Lucas.
We are saying, with regards to baking, if you must bake in a tent.
That's from a recent episode of The Great British Bake Off, but he's also well known for Doctor Who, Come Fly With Me, and Little Britain. At the time of this dub though, Little Britain's life as a radio show had only just started, but Lucas had already appeared on TV and comedy shows like The Smell of Reeves and Mortimer and Shooting Stars.
What are the stars George does? Yes! And the scores are these dudes.
Though one character from the latter would go on to appear in Little Britain.
It's, you is bad, mother lover. You is bad. You is fat cow, and sort your life out.
As you can tell, he had experience with over-the-top comedy before voicing Ataru, but unironically, I think he was also well cast for the role, and evokes Ataru's many character flaws from the original.
But to grab her horns, I'll have to grab that body first.
Ataru!
Side note, technically Lucas would have another foray into giant air quotes anime as Sparks in the 2009 CG Astro Boy movie. You know, the one with Nicolas Cage.
Hello, son.
Lum was played by actress Anna Friel, known now for Pushing Daisies, Bathory, and The Girlfriend Experience, as well as stage productions. In the 90s, her role as Beth in Brookside received a lot of attention, as it was a big moment in lesbian representation on British TV, with the kiss itself being shown in the 2012 Summer Olympics opening ceremony. Her Lum voice isn't as high-pitched as the Seiyu or the previous dub actress, but it's still very princess-like.
I would dedicate my entire life to you. Where I come from, marriage is a sacred institution. So if you cheat on me...
Shinobu was played by musician, radio DJ, and presenter Lauren Laverne. In the 90s, she was part of the band Kaneki, and in the same year as Lum the Invader Girl, Mint Royal's single Don't Falter, featuring Laverne as a vocalist, was ranked 15th on the UK singles chart.
I love you! Don't ask me why, but I do! I don't want you to be the biggest loser in history! Get off! For f***'s sake! Don't you realize your obsession with sex is what helped cause all this?
Her ability to flip-flop between sounding sweet and violent was commendable, and again, genuinely in line with Shinobu's character. To a point. Her insults definitely become more frequent and more intense. Originally, it was stuff like flirtatious scum or lecherous pig, but now?
Two-timing little shit! Spineless turd! Extraterrestrial
Please, Shinobu!
Utter shit! Like a dog off somebody's leg! Come here!
So that's who the leads are. Maybe not as well known as they are now, but they definitely had some presence at the time. This is where things get tricky. Only those 3 voice actors are credited with their character's name. There are 5 other actors under other voices with that specification. I went looking for UK-based actors with those names, and here's what I found. Barbara Barnes has actually been in various UK anime dubs, one of them coincidentally being their dub of Bubblegum Crash, which Southwind dubbed in America. Her career also spans live-action productions like Poirot and Miss Marple, video games, audiobooks, stage work, poetry writing. It's all on her website and resume if you want to see. I think it's safe to say that she's the voice of Tane in this dub, as he's the only character here with an American accent. It's oddly similar to Southwind's approach, where she sounds more like a kid than a baby, and also has an accent that stands out.
Hey, what's the matter with you? Is your little Ataru not standing up for itself?
Then there's Sean Barrett, and I'm not even gonna try pinpointing his best known work because he's done so much.
Of the lot of us, who's got the most boring voice?
Gonna be me, Ted. Listen, I have an awful dreary, monotonous voice. God help me.
Yes.
In terms of voiceover, he's done so many audiobooks, but also cartoons, games, and dubbing media from multiple countries, including some of those anime dubs Barnes had worked on like Rouge and Zed.
I was managing a computer company before most of these young whippersnappers were even born.
He's done everything from Dark Souls and Xenoblade to an audio version of the Quran. Given his wealth of experience, I wouldn't be surprised if he's played more of the male characters in this dub than what I'd imagine.
Extricate yourself from the ashtray. We're at your house.
Next we have Steve Brody, and the two Steve Brodys found by a quick Google search are American. One dying years before this dub, and one dying a year after, and this not even being the correct spelling of his name. Thanks for the confusion, Sonic Adventure credits. For that reason, this is probably supposed to be Steve Brody with a Y who is British, especially since he'd appeared on shows like It's Ulrika and Barking, which also featured Matt Lucas. Beverly Hills, that's her name, not the place in California, had also been in Brookside in the 90s. In the 2000s, she was on various children's shows like Bears Behaving Badly and Tikkabilla, but obviously has been acting on more mature programs like Coronation Street too. When it comes to Andy Taylor, I'm guessing it's not the Duran Duran guitarist or the co-manager of Iron Maiden, but the actor who played Dr. McLaren in Red Dwarf.
Now, you're a robot, aren't you?
Based on his voice, I'd guess that he's responsible for the comedically uptight yet energetic performances of Megane and some of the announcers in this dub.
That's it, Ataru! Scream! Scream so that Lum can hear you from her planet! And so the tag game is about to begin, and the world holds its breath. Yeah, like that. Good evening and welcome to live coverage of a giant monster terrorizing the suburbs of Tokyo.
You may have seen some other actors not listed here getting associated with Lum the Invader Girl from websites like ANN or Wikipedia. Alan Wenger as Ataru's dad, Alan Marriott as Chibi. It seems connected to what the dubbing wiki had previously said, but it's since been updated to only contain actors from the TV broadcast credits. Some of those website exclusive credits are for Kurama, Onsenmark, and Ryoko Mendo, who don't even appear in these episodes. There is one unconfirmed actor credit that has something extra going for it though.
Let me introduce Mr. Invader, mighty ogre, intergalactic warrior, and the voice of Bert Fry in The Archers.
Very pleased to meet you. I'm here to conquer the Earth.
The Archers is a BBC Radio 4 drama that's been going since the 50s. The actual voice of the character Bert Fry is Eric Allen.
Come guide us through the mists of time and lead us in poetic rhyme.
But since he's not in the credits, it's probably someone doing an impersonation. Technically, this dub is at an unfair advantage, as they didn't have to bother with the challenges of localizing the original dialogue if they didn't want to, focusing on jokes instead. Regardless, the comedy in these performances feels deliberate and sharply observed. For as uncommitted this whole production was to the original Urusei Yatsura, the energy and the acting kept me interested. If there was a weak link, you could maybe point to some moments from Anna Friel, like the crying,
I came all this way to help you.
Well, or here where they decided to hone in on the sync and it didn't work too well.
Oh, I don't know, I think he looks more like a pig.
Gag dubs can be problematic because of how they misrepresent the Japanese team's work or infringe on a property's legacy. I think as long as it's once in a while though, the comedic spirit of gag dubs can represent a liveliness we'd love to see in normal dubs more often, while somehow actually keeping the script on track, of course. Lum the Invader Girl follows patterns that may sound familiar from other gag dubs or even some sillier normal dubs, making light of how the animators drew things.
We could catch Lum! Look at the size of our hands!
Self-aware pop cultural references or wisecracks.
If it's Pikachu, I've got the set!
Breaking the fourth wall to acknowledge that this is a dub of something foreign.
Grand opening sale for the new noodle restaurant!
I'll just have the omelette, I don't fancy Japanese.
Having characters say extra jokes when they don't have lip flaps.
Hey, I didn't call a cab!
Casual swearing.
Off.
And just general silliness.
I had an explicit dream about you last night involving a powerful discharge!
Granted, even in this dub, it's still weird to hear Lum say Ataru's name sometimes instead of always calling him darling.
How dare you! I bring only love into Ataru's life!
There were a few name changes, including this couple becoming Gerald and Geraldine, Ray becoming Raymond, and even the protagonist's surname.
Ataru Mabarashi.
Mr. Mabarashi.
Ataru Mabarashi.
Ataru Mabarashi.
Hey, Mrs. Mabarashi.
It's the end of the Mabarashi name.
Mabarashi actually is a Japanese word that means phantom or illusion rather than struck by a falling star. But of course, they pronounce it more like Mabarashi.
From Ataru Mabarashi, the well-known Get.
Ataru Mabarashi even has an uncle who got sent to prison.
Not since your Uncle Kenshi was locked up in the nonsense wing!
Nonce is British slang for sex offender, by the way. They tried changing some characters' catchphrases, like Ten and Ataru's parents, but with only 2 episodes, it's not much. A new running gag, though, is that Ataru's father is a... something.
My father's a chiropodist. I am the simple oversexed son of a chiropodist.
The oversexed son of our local chiropodist.
The performance of oversexed chiropodist son Ataru Mabarashi.
I'm pretty sure it's this word, but I don't know if that's how you pronounce chiropodist.
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 Chiropodist. Chiropodist.
It's a kind of foot doctor, but is there anything more to it? I don't know much about British cultural media either, so some of the strangest stuff in this dub could be references I'm not familiar with.
Now, unless you obey our instructions, we will have to employ this individual, Mr. Takahashi, our PE teacher.
I hope you got your kid.
That sounds kinda specific. Is it from something, or was it made up for the dub? Lip sync wise, it's not as tight as modern dubbing, though again, I imagine it's easier to not care given how unserious everything is. Despite the very different script, it is still fully uncut as far as dialogue itself goes. The ED, however, was truncated from around 90 seconds to 14, with the next episode previews completely removed. Meanwhile, they cut the OP and moved the eye catch to the start of each episode, slapped the 3 lead actors' names on it, and zoomed in on their own Lumby Invader Girl logo. There's no official release for this dub, and the versions that have gotten popular online consist of HD footage, likely from the Japanese Blu-ray, synced up to the audio. You can tell when the footage cuts back to the original broadcast due to a drop in quality and the Japan TV logo in the corner. As a result, we know the episode titles were rewritten in English and imposed over the Japanese text. They also provided some translations for in-universe text. What I don't know is how exactly they handled the nudity in episode 1, because the upload uses the HD footage for that shot. The full episodes used to be up on YouTube but have since been taken down by ShowPro. Luckily you've got me who downloaded them before that happened. They put a mosaic over Lum's breasts, but whether that was done on BBC Choice or just for the sake of YouTube isn't clear. I found another upload on the Internet Archive, but it zooms in on the HD footage instead, so her nipples are out of frame. But the dub is fully uncut with no other edits, right? Technically no. There's a moment in episode 3 where the music actually loops and Ataru's next line is totally silent. Okay, and near the end, these 2 tracks are clearly different in each language.
Any progress with the dinner, love?
The mood is pretty similar, so it doesn't change much, but then... why? Occasionally you do get a line in this dub that's just a normal adaptation of the Japanese. I noticed it more as we got closer to the end, where some of the punchlines were basically what the original did.
Looks don't count! It's what's inside!
One's personality.
Oh yeah, you all sound so convincing. Shut up!
Though granted, you could argue the dub was at least playing off what was in the direct translation at times, like how Ataru originally said he was acrophobic, but Matt Lucas says diabetic.
A diabetic!
Raymond's line as he runs into girls all over the park is different, but the substance of the gag is basically what the Japanese had done. Keep in mind that Urusei Yatsura was a comedy story long before the BBC got its hands on it, and a good comedy at that. It even has a cameo from Garfield himself. That's not to say the gag stopped completely. One of the last few lines references Jerry Springer, though something that might stand out more than how the script was handled is... the Britishness.
Arrogant little son! Well, there you go, love.
You can probably think of a few anime dubs full of UK accents, but I'd wager the American-sounding dubs you can think of outnumber them many times over. And American actors doing the accents themselves without the right prep isn't always optimal. General American English, which isn't one accent but a cluster of accents with less obvious regional variations, is the standard for how anime is dubbed into English, in particular when dubbing Japanese characters speaking Japanese in Japan. Obviously there's exceptions, but nowadays you don't really deviate from that standard at the drop of a hat, and even actors with natural UK accents might have to blend in with their American castmates. There usually has to be a plot reason, like a character has a certain Japanese dialect or were confirmed to be from overseas, etc. Since this dub felt no obligation to represent the original story, it's not surprising surprising that it features a variety of UK accents, making it feel more local.
My daughter takes after her mother.
Well, Gary, for my money, he's not gaining the crucial 10 yards where it counts.
Give it back! That's my oil! I've got things to lubricate!
Hard to tell, Base. There's an enormous jelly bean over my eyes.
It didn't matter that these Japanese characters casually referenced things like the Archers or the Sun or Ipswich.
They were bad enough when I dated that boy from Ipswich.
And you'd rarely hear slang like sod, git, bud, tot, gov, or shagged used in a US dub.
If he's shagged her, I'll kill him!
This video is not a full history of UK dubbing, but here's a bit of context. In this online doco about Cyber City Oedo, someone called, oh hey, Justin Savakis, talks about the UK dubs produced for manga entertainment back in the day.
It was mostly cast with American expats and English people with really terrible fake American accents.
But if you click over to this Cloud Matsuri video hosted by Mike Toole, there are a couple of UK dubs he showcases from smaller, more fanish outlets that do let the local accents show.
Come back and fight like a man. How long are you going to keep me in this dump? Let me out!
Does it hurt?
It's okay. It's only a small scratch. You do remember your promise, don't you? If Ryan was to be harmed under your care.
You agreed to return Ryan to his mother, so you should.
As for how this dub was received at the time, it might be worth remembering that BBC Choice was a digital channel that began in September 1998. This article from the day it launched says, a survey by GfK Marketing Services found only 3/4 of the adult population had ever heard of digital television. Of those, 58% said they did not understand it, and 71% said they were unlikely to invest in receiving equipment in the next year. That might be kind of anecdotal regarding Lum the Invader Girl, which came out in 2000, but in The Telegraph that month, Marsha Dunstan wrote for Channel Hopper about Japan TV. She praised the night overall for its diverse and refreshing content, describing Lum the Invader Girl as the real discovery. She called it a more sophisticated take on Japanese culture compared to Pokemon, and that it was translated with good jokes and flair, and then dubbed into English with... Does that say definite? Northern accents. Mark Morris in The Guardian, however, wasn't so excited, being much more critical of Japan TV's narrow portrayal of Japanese pop culture and how it plays into stereotypes. Regarding the dub itself, he wrote, it isn't even clear whether this is some inept attempt to reheat the What's Up Tiger Lily formula, a mere 3.5 decades on, or whether the weak, mildly dirty humor is translated directly from the Japanese. Either way, it's still not very funny. What's Up Tiger Lily is an old Woody Allen film where they basically gag-dubbed the Japanese film International Secret Police Key of Keys to have a more comedic plot and tone from the original. I don't know what specifically caused Lum the Invader Girl's following in the internet age. The first time I came across it was a thread from Urusei Yatsura superfan Andrew Yoshimura last year. He mentions fans previously thinking it was terrible before context and history came to light, so maybe this was a similar case to Ghost Stories where a certain narrative had persisted till better info got spread wider? Matt Lucas actually posted the second Urusei Yatsura opening on Twitter in December 2019, although no one in the replies at the time seemed to make the connection. Regardless, it's interesting that this dub was produced for the BBC's audience, but now thanks to the internet, it's entertaining people from all over the world. Comments and replies to clips of this dub are pretty much universally positive. A lot of people like the energy the actors brought, others found the Britishness of the dub refreshing and wish it could happen more often, and others just got a laugh out of it. I definitely disagree with the folks who've said this dub is the only way to experience Urusei Yatsura, because again, it was already hilarious in Japanese, and I also disagree with folks saying dubs can only be good as irreverent parodies like this. However, this situation does have a different vibe to something like Ghost Stories, where even if some parts were funny, it's more obvious that the added humor changed the original show's genre. Urusei Yatsura was already a comedy, and the gag dub was only a fraction of the entire show anyway. If anything, I hope it can act as a hook or a prompt to get people into watching the rest of the anime for real, even though they'll be watching it subbed. At this point, I don't think the anime dub industry would go full British overnight, and obviously English is spoken in more countries than the US and UK. But maybe the following Lum the Invader Girls developed is a sign that viewers want more variety in dubs when it comes to accents, which, I think at least, is a pretty interesting discussion. Once again, Lum the Invader Girl is available online and has no official release anyway. It's probably the weirdest Urusei Yatsura dub that exists, but what about the weirdest Urusei Yatsura dub that doesn't exist?
Before we get to the last confirmed Urusei Yatsura TV series dub, let's look at a dubious dub. On January 25th, 2014, a Redditor by the name Turbo Guppy posted on r/tip of my tongue, asking about a show he used to watch during the mid-1980s in Alaska called Cosma the Invader Girl. It was an animated comedy series about a green-haired space girl, Cosma, and her brother, Jerry, who decided to settle into the house of an average boy named Chris. She could fly and zap people with electricity, and her brother could breathe fire. Sound familiar? This general setup sounds suspiciously similar to Urusei Yatsura. That's because, once someone managed to identify the show, the OP confirmed this was indeed a dub of Urusei Yatsura. Turbo Guppy elaborated further on details, featuring more alterations from the original anime. Other characters included his jealous girlfriend, his Spanish teacher Professor Vazquez, and Guru the monk, who spoke in a stereotypical oy vey Jewish accent and made frequent pop culture references, and Reggie, an arrogant billionaire who also had the hots for Cosma and acted pretty much like Reggie from Archie Comics. In fact, the whole show kind of reminded me of a sci-fi version of Archie. And lastly, the poster added the full lyrics to the theme song. Some commenters thought the OP may be mistaking this dub for the BBC or AnimEigo dub, but Turbo Guppy insisted Cosma the Invader Girl was a different dub entirely. But that was all recounted in 2014. The OP also posted to other subreddits with more info, but mostly episode synopses and then saying it aired in 1989. Turbo Guppy was last on Reddit on June 30th, 2015, and this hunt for Cosma has gone with no further leads. Now hold on though, this story sounds a little familiar. A dub that aired in the 80s in a small market with drastically different character names? That kind of sounds like The Adventures of Albert and Sydney. For those who don't know, The Adventures of Albert and Sydney is a dub of Doraemon that was recorded in Canada, is only known to have aired in Barbados in the mid-80s, and had completely different character names per the title. For a long time, there was no visual evidence of this dub, but here's the difference. Albert and Sydney had already appeared in multiple documents featuring Sinor Corporation around that time, was remembered by multiple Barbadians that saw it on TV as children, including a recollection of the theme song like this alleged dub of Urusei Yatsura, and eventually had evidence of the composer that worked on the show tucked away in a back alley of Google. The difference between Albert and Sydney and Cosma is that as time went on, more evidence surfaced to solidify Albert and Sydney's legitimacy, ultimately leading to several minutes of footage being uploaded by Albert and Sydney's composer. Meanwhile, as time has gone on for Cosma the Invader Girl, it's become more evident it never existed in the first place. The dub has the suspiciously well-detailed testimony of one person, the OP, with no documentation or visual evidence to back it up. And it's entirely possible this wild Emperor Goose chase was inspired by Albert and Sydney, given the parallels. And the final nail in the coffin for Cosma the Invader Girl? It's nowhere to be found in newspaper archives. Alaskan TV schedules show no sign of this ever having aired. It's been so thoroughly debunked that the Lost Media Wiki doesn't even have the Cosma article on their website anymore. Okay, but what about the MTV UK dub of Doraemon? That was not only obscure, but allegedly unreleased. Well, the MTV UK dub had substantial evidence attached to it, a 2-minute clip of the dub from a VHS tape and a reasonable story behind it. In fact, in 2022, the OP released the full episode ripped from the tape. It'd be an awful lot of effort for a hoax, especially given the liberties of the script and the pronunciation of Doraemon.
Doraemon? Doraemon? Doraemon?
I think it's safe to dismiss Cosma the Invader Girl as a hoax. Now let's move on to the last actual dub of the Urusei Yatsura TV series. Ah yes, my field of expertise, Hong Kong dubs. As late as February of 2004, the Southeast Asian TV channel Animax Asia began airing an English-language dub of Urusei Yatsura titled Lamu the Invader Girl. Sounds a little familiar. Starting out on the evening Megazone block before being moved to the morning Super Maniacs block later. Other dubs we've discussed so far only dubbed a few episodes and are fully available to watch online. This dub has the opposite problem. The team dubbed a minimum of 65 episodes, which is roughly 1/3 of the series. However, only one episode is almost fully available online, just missing the first few minutes. Other episodes only have clips available. This sadly is par for the course for dubs that aired on Animax, especially ones this old. Only 6 voice actors are known to be in this dub. The credits that rolled during the dub's run don't list any of the English cast, so most of this is either confirmed by ear or by voice actors themselves. Note that roles here, if applicable, are referring to Hong Kong dubs, not their North American counterparts. Lum, or should I say Lamu, is voiced by Claudia Thompson. She has also been the voice of Tomoyo Daidolji in Cardcaptor Sakura, Sakura Mato in Fate Stay Night, and Momoko in Ghost at School, aka Ghost Stories. Yeah, this dub pronounces the name of the titular character as Lamu. The staff of Hong Kong dubs often received roughly translated scripts, and it's doubtful the Japanese staff had any involvement in the dubbing process, so errors like this were bound to happen. This dub doesn't adapt Lum's unique style of speech, instead playing it straight. But Lum does refer to Ataru as her darling. Thompson's voice for Lum is great. In my opinion, it's the best Lum voice so far. It's bubbly and well acted, not forced or stiff. Best of all, it sounds like she's having a lot of fun.
Okay then, if that's what you've decided to do, you do it. Good luck, Ataru. Hey, hands off my man!
Hey, Lamb, what are you still doing here?
I'm protecting you.
Surprisingly, our preferred protagonist Ataru is voiced by a woman in this dub. Ataru is performed by Candice Moore. Moore's resume is massive, and her name has appeared quite a few times on this channel with roles such as Tsumugi Kotobuki in K-On!, Misaya Nohara in Shin-Chan, and the titular character in Anpanman. Moore's voice for Ataru isn't bad, but it's off-putting because Moore makes him sound like a cheeky middle schooler, not a pervy high schooler. But otherwise, it is a competent performance. It just would have worked better for another character.
Do you know that many girls?
Oh yeah, and they're all in my little black book here. Well, I am an international playboy.
Lamu's alien cousin Ten is voiced by Sarah Hauser, also the voice of the titular characters of Doraemon and Sergeant Keroro, as well as Botan on Yu Yu Hakusho. Once again, like in other dubs, Ten is played more like a kid than a baby, but I think Hauser's boy voice fits Ten well enough.
I don't trust him, Lamu. He looks like he's up to no good. Hey, don't come any closer!
The smooth-talking swordsman Shutaro Mendo is played by Russell Waite. He's also played characters such as Cosma Kuwabara in Yu Yu Hakusho, Master Roshi in Dragon Ball, and Koga and several other characters in Inuyasha. Funny enough, Waite shares the role of Shutaro Mendo with Akira Kamiya, who have both also voiced the bumbling detective Kogoro Mori in Detective Conan.
I'm glad to get a pass from such a beautiful lady. It's just a shame that I had to wait for so long for her to happen to me, a lowlife.
The deceptively sweet alien Ran is performed by Andrea Kwan, hey that rhymed, who also played Ataru's mom. Her resume includes young Goku in Dragon Ball and Sakura Kinomoto in Cardcaptor Sakura. Ran in this dub, like others we'll see, is pronounced like the English word ran.
Just you wait. I'll get my revenge! You better watch out, Lamu. Your nemesis is coming to kick your butt!
And the last actor known to be in this dub is Darren Pleven, voicing Ataru's dad as well as Dracula. Pleven is no stranger to Rumiko Takahashi property dubs, as he's the male Ranma in Ranma 1/2 and the titular character of Inuyasha.
Hey, what are you doing buried in my garden at this time of night, buddy? Man, it's the Garlic Gang! The Garlic Family!
As for the director, Darren Pleven said it was likely Andrea Kwan or Ina Chow, as they were the usual directors at Omni. Given there are so many characters across so many episodes, there are funny voices and accents sprinkled throughout the dub. Dracula's voice is a great example, as it's clearly modeled after the famous Bela Lugosi Dracula voice, which makes sense as that's the Dracula voice everyone knows. His Bat Companion's voice is also based on Bela Lugosi. Sadly, voice actors involved in Lamu the Invader Girl don't remember much about it. This dub was recorded almost 2 decades ago, likely in the span of a month. Omni Productions dubs back in this era spent roughly 1 to 1.5 hours per episode across various series over the course of an 8+ hour workday to get these out the door as fast as possible. For comparison, Omni Productions' dub of Yu Yu Hakusho was completed in 3 to 4 weeks. That's 112 episodes done in a month at most. Urusei Yatsura has 194 episodes, or 195 if you count episode 193.5 as a separate episode. It's reasonable to think this dub would have been cranked out at the same blistering speed of their Yu Yu Hakusho dub, and that's assuming Omni dubbed everything. Unless a project is super notable or memorable for some reason, these dubs often fade in actors' and directors' memories. Case in point, I reached out to Candice Moore to see if she remembers anything about working on Lamu the Invader Girl. Her response? Honestly? No, but this has brought back some recollection. Thanks for that. Likewise, when I contacted Darren Pleven and asked him about Lamu the Invader Girl, here was his response.
What do I remember about it? Yeah, a space girl in leopard print. That's kind of what I remember about that.
Info about this dub is mostly limited to the 1 episode fully available, various clips, and snippets of info online. This dub is sometimes referred to as Alien Musabat, which causes some confusion. Alien Musabat is what the show is called in India, translating to Alien Disaster, and to my knowledge, this is what Animax listed it as only in India. In all other English-speaking regions though, it is Lamu the Invader Girl. Back in this era, Omni Productions dubs were done by placing all actors inside a booth together, reading off their own copies of the script, deciding who voices which background characters on the fly, and matching their mouth movements to the lip flaps on screen. So, in a way, the actors were also the engineers. That said, given the deadlines and budget, the actors did an okay job matching flaps. Occasionally wonky, but overall, not bad. The script is accurate without sounding too stilted. It sticks to the plot of the Japanese version and changes lines to sound more natural in English, like a good dub should. Hong Kong dubs unfortunately have a reputation of awkward scripts, but this one, hardly. A trait of Omni dubs back then is the team would sometimes make silly jokes or pop culture references if it suited the mood of the project, and Lamu the Invader Girl certainly fit the bill, given the Japanese version's abundance of jokes and references. The changes aren't as crude or excessive as the BBC dub though. For example, in the first few minutes of episode 27, Dub Dracula makes this reference while flying.
Stroke 1, stroke 2, 1, two.
I got a laugh out of that. I didn't expect a reference to J-Rose 11, I mean Sesame Street. And Ataru, when talking to Dracula's henchbat, makes a few bat-related puns and comments.
My master will punish me for failing him.
Does he drive you batty? I want to meet her now, otherwise I'm not gonna help you, okay, Batman? You got that?
Two last lines I got a kick out of.
My name is in fact Dracula.
Yeah, and I'm the Pope. Looks like it was written by a dyslexic horse.
But these funny lines are far and few between. The full episode available doesn't have a lot of Japanese cultural references, so it's not possible to compare how this dub handles that aspect versus the AnimEigo and BBC dubs. But this episode has one note worth making, literally. When Dracula is writing his letter to Lum, in Japanese his bat companion notes his lack of using kanji, Dracula specifying not being able to write date using kanji since date, as in a romantic outing, is a loan word. The dub handles this by Dracula writing this senselessly flowery line.
You're more beautiful than a desert sunset, and I would like to bite your neck, thanks very much.
His bat comments on the letter saying it's great but would be better if it made sense. Dracula follows this up by bluntly writing,
Hi, sweet thing, let's go on a date. I'm burning to meet you. Lots of love and kisses, Dracula.
Sure enough, in both versions, Dracula's, unique penmanship and choice of words is laughed at. To be more specific about the Japanese version, he incorrectly uses kanji characters in his letter, which the dub adapts by saying all the words are wrong. So, props to the dub. Usually, Animax dubs are considered inferior to North American, or I guess in this case British too, productions. But Lamu the Invader Girl strikes a nice balance between the straightforward and stilted AnimEigo dub and the comedic and well-performed BBC dub. Granted, we only have one episode plus some clips to go off, but based on what is available, this dub is solid. The script flows well, the direction is competent, and the cast members suit their characters and sound like they're having a great time. And why wouldn't they? It's Urusei Yatsura. The dub has a few minor translation problems, mostly seen when Ron is talking to Dracula one-on-one, but these aren't egregious or excessive. While the direction is competent, it sounds like a high-tier fan dub on some line reads. And the weakest link of the voice cast is Candice Moore as Ataru, but she makes up for it by being entertaining. I say Lamu the Invader Girl is up there as one of the best Hong Kong anime dubs. And dare I call it the best dub of Urusei Yatsura? Granted, that's not a very high bar to clear. Lamu the Invader Girl was last known to be on Animax in April of 2005, with it disappearing from the lineup entirely come September that same year. While this is possibly the best English dub of the Urusei Yatsura TV series, is it the best English dub overall? We're not done with Urusei Yatsura just yet, as we still need to talk about the movie dubs. And oh boy, this is a doozy. Come back next time when we look at the dubs of Urusei Yatsura's 6 films. We're talking Joey Wheeler, Dawson's Creek, Agent Fox, and... Am I allowed to say this? No? No, okay, we'll leave it out. Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, and leave in the comments, what do you think of the English dubs of Urusei Yatsura? When did you first discover the series? What else should I cover in this series? I'm always listening to your suggestions. Big thank you to Abhi of the Cartoon Cypher for helping on this monster of a video. Thought I'd be able to squeeze it maybe into one part, but after a while, we knew it wasn't happening. So sorry to do another two-parter, I know that's been a theme this year, but bear with us because part 2 is gonna be fun.
Thanks so much for having me, Yui. It was great working on an English dub history episode, and I learned a lot. You can subscribe to my channel, The Cartoon Cypher, where we occasionally do videos on dubbed anime as well, or our SoundCloud, where we post our interviews with actors and staff.
Also keep an eye out for K-On! Part 2 coming soon, where I cover Season 2 and the movie. Shout out to all of my supporters on Patreon and Twitch. Supporters on either platform got to see this video early. So if you'd like to see early video premieres, gain access to my exclusive Discord server, and have your name on screen here, please consider supporting me on either platform. Also, shout out to all donors of Extra Life. Andrew Bergman, Cybershroom, Janet L, Joe D, Matt, Project Scion, Straw Hat Ryan, and all other donors for Extra Life. Until next time, take care.